The Diary of a Certified Psychopath. Off the Crank. The Trials of Tech. Another thwarted attempt to belatedly road test my data dungeon's just replaced G-Sync monitor and ensure, wherever feasible, that FPS matched both BPM and power consumption. In this instance, I'd have averaged just over 1 watt per hertz of its maximum refresh rate. That is, had I not arriven to discover that my full fibre slip road to cyclical cyberspace was not merely offline, but in urgent need of personal maintenance. The LED ring on BT's 3rd gen smart hub was flashing a lurid grass green, indicating no connection to the web could be established. Since this is a fibre-to-residence service, as opposed to cabinet, the model they supplied operates solely as a router and wireless access point, and has no integrated modem. Instead, the latter is a separate device, in this instance mounted on a nearby wall, and linked to the router via a single RJ45 cable. This, by contrast, had both its activity lights solidly illuminated, all but confirming that the fault lay inside the premises, whilst no local service outage had been reported, further evidencing, even when accounting for BT's notoriously slack updates, no issues were abound at the local exchange. As the unit's browser-based GUI could not be accessed via its allocated network IP address, I was unable to log in and reconfigure settings or perform any further troubleshooting. Multiple power cycles and a factory reset also failed to restore its functionality. Dialed the free phone customer support department and was asked by a synthetic voice to provide my non-existent landline number. Then, after selecting the logical option to report a new fault, was told to do so by visiting BT's website on the now inaccessible internet and cut off. Phoned again, and via an intuitive strategy of either remaining silent or choosing all other inquiries, then providing my account number, I was eventually put in contact with an extremely helpful and human representative, who verified my diagnosis and stated that a new smart hub will be dispatched for delivery next Tuesday. Unless I can source a compatible alternative, it'll be small screen Zwiftology until then. More Trials of Tech, Part 2. A pleasant surprise. Not only was Royal Mail's estimated delivery time accurate to within half an hour of a sunny high noon, BT were considerate enough to send 2 brand new smart hubs, along with packaging to strap up their stricken sibling for returning as compostable e-waste. Long story short-ish, I unpacked the pictured unit and opportunistically connected it to the old power supply, which was cable-tied so neatly that I wished to avoid the tediousness of rooting around for wire cutters and risk an aesthetically inferior job. Upon powering up, the hub's diagnostic LED ring illuminated green, then began to pulsate, flashed white momentarily, switched back to steady green for several seconds, before repeating the same cycle ad infinitum, with no sign of any internet activity on the local network, and its browser-based GUI remaining inaccessible when attempting to log in via the unit's default IP address. Rummaged through the packaging and pulled out the new adapter, which was then hooked up to its rightful router. Power button pressed, light sequence reoccurs, but this time concludes with a solid purple circle, indicating that a connection to the WAN had been established, whilst all computers physically linked to its LAN ports were now able to browse web pages. Tried the new PSU with the old and still suspect router, thinking that the former might have been the culprit all along, though after the familiar and enlightening prelude of coloured Morse code, the device's cryptic luminous ring concluded by flashing orange, with again no sign either of net communication or ability to access the hub's integrated manager. Assuming this unit had developed a terminal defect that had been caused by what I was now certain to be a faulty power adapter, I reinstalled the new router and returned the old to its original box ready for shipping back to BT, using their enclosed prepaid label. After reconfiguring the hub's default DHCP range, reserving specific IP addresses within this window of temporary allocation for 2 systems on the network to ensure their leases would never expire, and setting up a handful of port forwarding rules for applications that needed to circumvent its firewall, normal service in the data dungeon was restored. This tale of success was followed by a scarcely worthy stress test when considering the meagre mileage and paltry wattage, but sufficient nonetheless to comfortably savour two of Zwift's signature tangerine sunsets in Watopian warp time, and covertly cadge the odd slipstream off whichever wheels wandered within draftable range.